Oh no, what do I see? You know what I see? The keel! Oh!
So let me tell you the story of how this happened. We just arrived at this anchorage a few days ago and we were looking around at land and we saw a boat sitting on land, quite a big boat with 3 spreaders, which was a bit unusual because we know that there's no boatyard on the island, and we also know that, or we thought that there's no travel lift or anything to lift a boat of this size out of the water. It was sitting really close to the beach, which suggested it might be a shipwreck. However, it was standing straight up, which was kind of odd because usually shipwrecks are sort of, you know, leaning over, smashed against the rocks. So we decided to row over and have a closer look. And the reason why we decided to have a closer look, I mean beyond just normal curiosity, is we are thinking of upgrading to a bigger boat to cruise to farther destinations.
At one point.
In the next 2 years or 3 years, we'll see how it happens. And Aladino is a boat builder, and
always looking for a project.
And he restored this boat after it was a total insurance write-off because Magic Carpet, our current boat, fell 6 meters, 20 feet
Yeah.
from a crane onto concrete. So we've always got our eye out for the next project, and we thought maybe this could be it, and we thought we would show you what we found.
One doesn't look like just a trailable day sailor. Very intrigued. Let's go right now! Jacques Cousteau music. It's time for adventure. Maybe that's our future boat.
Quick, quick!
So the only sign of neglect that I can see so far is, well, unless they dug a hole and the keel is in it, it could be a shallow draft thing. It is sitting really low, but the only neglect part that I can see is that the Jeanneau is a tiny bit unfurled, but that's not a place for a boat to be. Is it a shipwreck? Is it ours? Do we want it? Do I have it? Can I have it? Is that why I was carrying around epoxy and fiberglass the last 2 years? I mean, because it has sails on it, it has a bimini structure, it looks like it has many things. There must be a boatyard. Can it be a boatyard? Here? Are you kidding me? If we grab the boat, the helicopter? Quick!
Quick before your brain explodes!
Quick! Here, beach access!
Not so clear.
Oh! Wow! So, yeah, well, I'm just even looking at the keel now. I want to see how many layers Jeanneau puts on a Sun Odyssey 54. There is some roving. Yeah, it's a little bit brittle. Yeah, amount of resin, I'm not sure. Is this really well made? For a fairly new boat, this is a bit rusty here. Cleanly ripped out. All the bolts are there. Yeah, this one suffered a bit. Wow, this is so interesting. But then it's just clearly ripped out. I mean, that's what you get from a few poundings on solid material, which, well, those rocks here were. So yeah, we just met a woman here on the beach, and we told her we're curious about the boat, so she told us the whole story, which she was very well informed of. Yeah, a few months ago. It's pretty recent actually. It was a bit stormy and the boat was left unattended, and then you can imagine the rest. So here it is now. That was the keel. Bottom is completely crushed. Oh, this is such a playground for me. I want to look at everything, and impact here and impact there, and resistance and what happened and what not. So, there is Interesting. Is this a solid, no core boat? No. Yeah, no. I'll have to look at that closer.
Do you assume it would be core?
Well, yes. Every modern production boat, I would assume. This is maybe where the whole adventure started. Of something yanking. No, this force looks more like thwacking on a rock somewhere. Wow. This is massively torn. The mast looks just perfect, and sails and everything is on it. Yeah, maybe they didn't even touch. I'm surprised how the sides of the boat in general don't look like they got a crazy amount of impact. But yeah, the underbody is so destroyed that it is all twisted. And she said there is no more interior. So what is that? Just from having a big opening and...
I'm not sure. She said it was all ripped out.
Oh, here's the anchor. Oh, nicely parked. Yeah, we just have to demast and then have a crane turn it upside down, and then I will do my bum wiggle sanding dance.
You're not going to do that amount of work
I
on the
will.
Jeanneau.
I will. Okay. Oh. So yeah, this is interesting. I haven't seen the core yet, but this is all completely useless, smashed. Wow, this looks like Magic Carpet stern. No, this looks not as bad, honestly, right now. It's more about the size of the crash and not being a long keel, but oh boy, was the fiberglass on my stern crushed. You know what I like a lot? What do you call the air snifflers on a boat?
Vents.
The vents there. Oh, don't those have a specific name?
Maybe.
Yeah, but probably
Let
those
us
are
know if you know
also
the specific name.
quick and
I don't.
cheaper ones.
That looks like a core.
No,
No?
it looks like more fiberglass. I don't see a core yet.
Really?
This is another layer.
Okay.
But maybe after that, yeah, but if there is a section that is completely open, then we could see it.
I
But
think
I
on the
haven't yet.
on the other side, I think there might be a completely open section.
I don't know if anything is visible, but yeah, biggest chaos in the interior. Just everything broken and into bits. Yeah, that's a sight. No core. No core. But still, for this size boat, yeah. I don't know. Here there is a nice section where you can see it. Yeah, this is very interesting. I didn't think that would be a no-core boat. Yeah. And I don't know if this type of delamination has to do with using like a lot of roving and not the thinner ones in between, or yeah, too much resin, because it's weird how they all separate one from another. I mean, of course they're not made for this impact, but yeah, whole design would also change that a lot and make a whole lot stiffer and stronger if it doesn't have one little bulb pulling all this force onto a flat bottom, or well, a bit curved. Yeah, I think a long-keeled boat would have leaned on a side and have much more damage on the side, midships towards the top, because laminate gets thinner there, and this one is just completely wrecked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's giving birth to something.
Yeah, I was wondering what that is, like
some interior liner.
some interior or something, yeah. You can look in the window too, and the
Yeah,
whole interior
I
is
looked
just
into
destroyed.
it. Yeah. from the other side. Here is much easier. Oh, floorboards. Floorboards, the first thing in my eye. Where is this going? Oh, nowhere. Yeah, just assuming things here, but it still is interesting. So when I looked at the anchor bow, the roller, the stainless steel fitting that the anchor sits on, I thought this cannot be broken because of the chain yanking. It must be impact, but now I changed my mind. And I actually do think that the anchor got caught under a rock somewhere, and then with big waves, violent tug must have completely bent and ripped that.
You can
also
see where the chain...
Yeah, totally. But that's why, like, I'm surprised that is nothing too harsh. There's little damage from the waterline up, and that's why I think that it yanked hard when it got trapped, because basically there is just one screw and that little platform there making it stronger, but those big cheeks are, they're not somehow supported or made stronger. It's that little bolt. Anyway, and then as the boat was starting to move along and the anchor got behind it, it got all those scratches on the bow. But one more thing that I just found now.
Wait, how do you explain that the anchor is underneath the boat now, though?
It just still dragged it along. It never like ripped apart or broke the chain. It still dragged it along all the time.
Hard 'cause the anchor was stuck.
Yeah. And if it got stuck there during getting it here on the hard, or if that happened during the accident, I really can't tell.
So it was stuck, it was tugging, and then eventually it started dragging and the boat ended up.
Yeah. And another interesting thing which I just noticed now is that the tugs with the waves were so violent that the windlass ripped out of the deck. It's not easy to see, but let me see. So if it is visible, maybe not, but it is pointing straight out, more like a Jeanneau boom instead of straight up how it should. So the violent tugging ripped out the windlass. It is actually something that you should consider and should mount bulletproof. But also I think he neglected one important point here. He didn't use a bridle. Even if he had, maybe the bridle snapped as well. I don't want to draw any conclusions here. But yeah, crazy. So yeah, that is one thing, to also build bulletproof and to use additional things like bridles. Another thing that surprised me is there is very little damage from the waterline above. And that would be the first thing I think of when you think of a boat beaching and dragging and getting smashed on the beach on the rocks. But what I think what could have happened here is that the keel actually was lost pretty much instantly. A few poundings jumping along the rock, and this massive weight and load on such a small surface, when you have a thin keel like that, ripped it out pretty quickly. Probably pushed it in the first or in the second violent touchdown. So there being no more keel, I think it just continued hopping then, pretty much upright.
Wouldn't it have turtled though without a keel?
Yeah, well,
maybe not in such
it was
shallow
already
water.
it was already sitting somehow in the shallow water. Yeah. I don't know, and maybe one wave sent it straight onto dry land.
Well, and so then the woman also told us that after it beached, it sat like kind of half submerged in the water
For 2 weeks or so.
for 20 days, she said, before a crane came and they lifted it to where it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just said that because I was pretty surprised not seeing a lot of damage, like really hard impact, crushed fiberglass from waterline up. There's just a few little scratches. Yeah, that was interesting to see. But yeah, anyway, hard to tell. One thing's for sure, this thing is not designed for impact. It is designed for speed and less surface, but you are not allowed to touch many times, and I think a long keel boat would have survived this grounding without becoming a total write-off, but it also depends on circumstances. Yeah, this is so incredible, but look at this harsh surface. Like, it's not even flattened out, doesn't have a flange, doesn't have anything. Yeah, this is just an incredible load on a hull once it touches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because
like even
at least if it was like covered here, then where it's attached to the boat, like the load is a bit more spread out, but here it would just like punch right through.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Like a cookie cutter almost.
It still would be very little, but yeah. Like also, this is the front of the keel. Let's say you run into something right here, motoring 6 knots. And look at this thin feel, and look at this thin part of the keel aft. This is pushing straight into the hole. It's so narrow and sharp. So yeah, there are some thoughts to put into this. There are the keel bolts still there. It got ripped out clean. And here is the bulb part, which got scratched and cleaned pretty nicely. Yeah. I am so amazed how there is no dent or anything visible besides
there are
it.
scratches, but
Yeah,
it's not
I
like
mean
a
it's
big
minimal,
deal.
and
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be from now. Probably it is, but there's just the color has come off. Yeah, I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is because it's not lead. Lead is much softer and would have kind of given away a little bit on impact, and this instead is cast iron, as I believe cast iron is much cheaper than lead. Also not as heavy though. And then you can pump it. Ooh, you know what I like? Yes, that is something I would want in the next boat.
Yeah.
Next to the mainsail track, there is the black track to the right.
Yeah.
It's not centered at all, but it just goes to the spreader mid-mast, and that's for a storm trysail. So you can hoist it at the same time. You don't have to go through havoc of taking one main down in case a storm is brewing. You just set your second main on a second track, which is already mounted.
So it's almost like the idea of having a cutter rig, but for the main.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Needless to say that it will not be our future project, unfortunately, and also fortunately for the obvious reasons. It's more that I'm interested always in projects. I mean, I can't help it. Every sailor, I think, would stop by and look at it and look at the consequences. You just always learn from every situation like that you can see. I wouldn't say no to a boat which doesn't require a lot of work, but for now we have a very limited budget, and I have a few skills, so therefore we are more looking for projects, but we never know what the next steps will look like, but it sure won't be this one, damage wise and design wise and just in general. For now we have a beautiful floating boat, and it might bring us to many other shipwrecks that we will look at and learn from them.